What is the Volunteer Match Network? Imagine a world of volunteers looking for their perfect match.
When a nonprofit posts a volunteer opportunity on Volunteer Match, that opportunity has the potential to reach millions of interested volunteers. To illustrate the reach of our network, let's imagine that this piece of candy represents 10,000 people.
An average of 15 million people visit volunteermatch.org each year. In addition, each volunteer opportunity has the potential to reach 10 million pro bono and skilled volunteers through LinkedIn's volunteer marketplace. 2.6 million employee volunteers search for our opportunities from companies like Starbucks, Groupon, and JetBlue. And more than 500,000 employee volunteers from multiple corporate giving platforms have access to volunteer opportunities from our network. Since 1998, Volunteer Match has facilitated over 12 million nonprofit volunteer connections. Now that you know more about the reach of our network, get started by going to volunteermatch.org and posting your volunteer opportunity today.
Hello, my name is Tony Dice, and I've put together a video for you today about the viability of 12-step support groups promoting their inclusion and treatment of addiction. I welcome you to spend some time with me today, and as we take a look at something I feel very important that we as human services professionals can better serve our clients. So join me for a second. Let's start with a little bit about me. Who am I to speak to this topic? Well, I'm the oldest of 8 siblings. I'm homeschooled. I was a paramedic, firefighter, and ultimately a Navy SEAL. As I exited the Navy, I became a drug addict, involved with a variety of substances. I spent about 10 years in active addiction. From there, here's a picture of me 2 weeks before I hit the bottom, as they say in the industry. I weighed about 135 pounds, and as you can tell, I wasn't looking so good. From there, I entered into a 28-day rehab. The 28-day rehab was 12-step. Was a 12-step facility. From there, I entered into a 12-step recovery program. My first year of recovery, after working through the 12 steps, I went back to TCC, which is I got my associates in social sciences. I then got my bachelor's in human services, a master's in counseling, worked for several years as a certified substance abuse therapist, and I'm currently a doctoral student at Old Dominion University. So this puts me in a unique position where I can speak to this topic. I'm a human services professional, and I have walked the walk of addiction and through a 12-step recovery base. What I want to share with you today was my experience in those 12 steps. It is a journey, the 12 steps, that whole culture. It is truly a culture. And I worked with a human service professional that entire time, and I saw a lack of awareness of what I was going through on the inside. So today I'm going to share with you some information I wish the practitioner that worked with me then had at the time. So let's move forward. This is a starting point, I'm going to make some assumptions about you out there and what you know about 12-step recovery. All right? Because there's a lot out there. For many people, AA and NA is the extent of their knowledge of 12-step recovery. All right? But did you know that 12-step format, there are over 200 different 12-step recovery programs out there for a whole variety of conditions, substances, behaviors. As we break it down further, we'll begin to learn that it's just not, the program itself isn't designed just to help someone stop using a particular substance or not. It's actually a behavior modification. So, let's move forward. Here's a list of some of the more popular 12-step recovery programs. I know it's hard to read on the screen. I have an email address I'll present at the end of this presentation, and if you'd like to get these web addresses for these more popular 12-step recovery groups, I will be more than happy to forward them to you. All right. This is it. This is what most of you have seen as far as 12-step recovery goes. It's this cryptic cloth hanging in the back of meeting rooms, anonymous programs, people don't talk about it. You know, it's almost like the first rule is don't talk about it kind of thing. 12-step recovery has done a great job keeping its secrets, which I don't necessarily believe has worked to its benefit, but it is in viewing it as a culture, we are ethically required to look at this and get to know it more, because when we have a client who comes to us and is working their way through this, we need to know what they're walking through. So let's break it down a little further. Here's my plan for today. I'm going to take each step of the 12 steps. I'm going to take a cognitive behavioral therapy translation of it. I'm going to basically put it into a language that we're familiar with, and then I'm going to talk about the function of each. Seems simple enough. Some of it may seem a little dry, some may seem new to you, but bear with me as we work our way through. All right, step one. We admit we're powerless over our alcohol and our lives become unmanageable. Again, sounds very cryptic, very mysterious. What are they really saying to us? We accepted the compulsive nature of our addiction and its symptoms and detailed the costs and consequences of our addictive behaviors. The function, personal acceptance that a problem exists. Are we ready to admit there is a problem? Is our client in a position where they're ready to say, wait a minute, this is a problem in my life? Does that sound familiar to you? All right, so this is the general format I'm going to follow throughout this presentation. As you notice, some of the steps I'll pair together because some of the steps kind of operate in pairs, and we'll work our way through. So let's move on to step two. Step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The CBT translation, we create a new vision of life, replacing the belief system we developed through our addiction with a positive belief system that helps us to experience interpersonal growth. What does this do for us? Accept that a program of recovery can help. Step two, it's often called the hope shot in recovery circles. Do they believe the program will work for them? That's the mindset. Many times in addiction and recovery, there's a sense that nothing will work, it's hopeless, I can't get better, why try? Step two is reaching a point in their recovery is, are they willing to believe that it worked for others, will it work for me? All right. Step three, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. The CBT translation, we committed to following the guidance of a process greater than ourselves. The function, agreed to commit to the process. All we're saying in step three is, all right, are you willing to follow suggestions? Have you reached a point where, first step, there's a problem. Second step, do you believe the solution exists? Third step, are you willing to follow suggestions that are given to you? 1, 2, and 3 have to take place in that order. All right, let's move on. So now that our addict or alcoholic has accepted that there is a problem, looks around, sees that there is a solution available, and has agreed to follow instructions to follow it, what does that sound familiar to us? All right, moving forward. Steps 4 and 5, I've paired them together because they're very closely aligned. Made a fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves, admitted to God and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Again, sounds very, very cryptic. Our CBT translation, we comprehensively list and disclose our problematic thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to a sponsor, HSP, or support group, knowing that the addiction cycle depends on secrecy and isolation. The function, recognition of unhealthy patterns we've developed in life. All right, there's this self-talk that goes on, that everything the addict or alcoholic has ever done is bouncing around up here. And there's so many things that cognitively they can't hold on to any one of them that makes them feel this way about themselves. But once they grab them and pull them out and write them down, their different behaviors, thoughts, and patterns, and get them separate from themselves, there's this sense that it's not them, and there's a finite amount of it. and it's something that's manageable. There's also what becomes evident is once they bring it out, there's patterns, cyclic patterns they keep engaging in. Things they may not be aware of or can be seen, but with our help, we're able to recognize them. Steps 4 and 5. When working step 5, the 12 steps ask you to share with someone. It could be your sponsor, but in the literature, that also speaks to you can also share with a professional outside the program. As human services professionals, this may be us. We may have a client come to us wanting to share their step 4 and 5 with us. If we do not know what they're talking about, we're in the dark. So it is on us to be prepared for this, because this is actually a big part of their recovery as they progress through 4 and 5. Steps 6 and 7, again, go together. Right? We are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. What does that mean? Again, it's so cryptic. The CBT translation, we list the ineffective character traits which we have developed as a coping mechanism for living with our disease. We use positive self-talk and behavior assignments to put our effective new philosophy into practice. What is this doing for us? Recognizing and changing psychological traits developed through active addiction. All right, here's the meat and potatoes of the program right here. We're making another list. We're getting out our current patterns we're still operating in. Oftentimes you'll hear an addict alcoholic who stopped using drugs and alcohol, but still repeating old behaviors, still acting out, still speeding, cursing, looking at pornography, still shoplifting. They're still trying to make themselves feel differently from the outside. By getting these traits out on paper, by sharing them with a sponsor, by sharing them with their human service professional, by sitting down with them and recognizing what they're doing, we're able to give exercises, give different CBT modalities to help them change those patterns. In recovery, most people think you're trying to stop using drugs and alcohol. More often than not, it's not so much stop doing this, it's do more of what works. Do more of this. All right, so let's move forward. Steps 8 and 9 again go together. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would it injure them or others. Sounds pretty straightforward, but what are they saying? We comprehensively review ways we have harmed others. Through our addictive behaviors, we use behavioral assignments to correct the damage done to our personal and professional relationships of our addictive behaviors. It's not saying I'm sorry. The function of this, behavior change and further acceptance of oneself. In 8 and 9, the addict and alcoholic begins to make amends for their behaviors. Some of these, the financial amends, take a long, long time. More the relational ones take a long, long time because the addict or alcoholic has to act differently. Many of the amends they make are simply not repeating old behaviors. This process here may take years. And also I might point out, it's steps 8 and 9. This is not something your addict or alcoholic you're working with is going to engage in the first several months of recovery. For many addicts and alcoholics, steps 8 and 9 may be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months out from their date of getting clean or sober. Steps 10 and 11, again, paired together. Step 10, continue to take a personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. The CBT translation, whenever we experience problematic thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, we must review and take a recovery action as soon as possible. We use meditation techniques to improve our mental, emotional functioning and come into a closer contact with our higher spiritual faculties. 10 or 11 are the daily maintenance steps that help keep the addict and alcoholic on track. This 10, this daily reflection, this daily inventory that they do of themselves on a daily basis of how were my interactions with others? Am I staying on track? If I'm having problematic thoughts and feelings, What can I do about them in the moment? Oftentimes they're as simple as reaching out, calling your sponsor, maybe going to a meeting, reaching out to an addict and alcoholic, asking for suggestions. They say getting out of yourself. That's the purpose of steps 10 and 11. Also in step 11, there's a lot of onus placed on the addict alcoholic to start developing a spiritual side. And when they say spiritual in the program of recovery, they're not saying religious, they're saying spiritual in terms of achieving a more sense of connectedness with themselves, with those around them, with a sense of a higher power if they have one. The function, monitoring and maintaining psychological health. Step 12, the last step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. Again, what are they saying? Having changed ourselves, we start supporting others with addiction, knowing that this is the most effective form of ongoing therapy for us. The function, remain engaged through helping others. It's very simple. It's funny, in the rooms of AA and NA, they talk about addicts and alcoholics having a highly developed forgetter. Now, what does that mean? It means that that they're very quick to they're very quick to forget the bad parts of addiction, the bad parts of the last days of their using. And they don't think it's going to be like that anymore. By continuing to go to meetings and by continuing to work with other newcomers, they're constantly reminded of what it was like towards the end. They don't ever want to forget how bad it got. When they see a newcomer coming in and they speak to them and they work with them, they realize that how much growth they've been through. They can see the distance between them and where they're at now. This is encouraging. This keeps them grounded and makes them realize the program of recovery is working. Step 12. It's often very closely associated with sponsorship. You hear of sponsors. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit when we talk about what kind of supports are available to people in 12-step recovery. But let's take a quick minute and talk very briefly about what does traditional support look like. All right? Traditional support, what I mean by that, what does the system we have in place look like for supporting the addict alcoholic? So here we have our addict alcoholic. She's found to have a problem, whether by friends, family, work. Someone rings a bell and says this person needs help, or maybe our addict alcoholic just decided on their own, enough is enough. We send them to a 28-day rehab, which is the standard right now for people for addicts and alcoholics. The 28-day rehab, after that period of time, they're sent to an IOP, an intensive outpatient program. These vary in length, but traditionally 3 times a week for up to 6 weeks. From there, our addict and alcoholic is assigned a substance abuse counselor, which we may see, if she's lucky and insurance permits, once a week for the next 90 days. If she's lucky. This is the standard support network that we provide addicts and alcoholics as they transition through their first early days of recovery. So if we look at this, it looks like they pretty much have 6 weeks out worth of support. A month and a half, maybe 3 months here if they were able to get the insurance coverage to work with their substance abuse counselor. 3 months of support, 90 days. Now, let's take this and we hold it up against what kind of support the rooms of AA and NA provide in conjunction with a traditional support network. So, here we have your traditional support network. The day one in our recovery, our addict and alcoholic is asked to find a sponsor. Right off the bat, the sponsor is someone who agrees to work with this addict and alcoholic. You can walk up to anyone in a meeting who has more time than you. Traditionally, they say they want to have at least a year or 2. If you hear part of their story when they're sharing sounds similar to yours, you're encouraged to go up to them and ask them, hey, will you work with me? Will you be my sponsor? If the sponsor agrees, the sponsor will give them their phone number. It's highly suggested that males work with male sponsors and females work with female sponsors. So instantly, right off the bat, this addict and alcoholic has access to someone in recovery 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in addition to traditional support network. Also, they have encouraged you to go to 12-step meetings. The sponsor is more than likely going to ask them to go to one meeting a day for the next 90 days. Meetings are typically an hour long, so there's an hour of additional programming. In addition to all of this, the addict and alcoholic has an additional layer of support. On top of that, daily access to recovery-based social groups. Part of the problem with early recovery for addicts and alcoholics is they're asked to change people, places, and things. They're not recommended that they continue to hang out with their work friends who drink or use, to hang out with their party friends who drink or use, to try to hang out in the nightclubs, or go on maybe even a family reunion would be problematic to them because there'll be a lot of substance abuse or drinking going on there. So they lose their social network, which is troubling for them because they're trying to feel better. They're not in a very happy place right now. Access to group recovery, people in recovery, they have sporting events, they go out to the beach together, they have different coffee shop meetings afterwards, they get together and go to ball games, they go out to the movies. A social network is supplied by the program of 12-step recovery. Also, phone, internet, literature, all provide 24/7 access. All this is provided in the rooms of recovery at no charge. The additional layer there that also serves our underinsured and uninsured clients is that all of the 12-step recovery is free of charge. It can be used in addition to standard recovery or as in replace of. If there is no coverage required whatsoever, this can be a standalone support network. So what do we have here? We have a rather robust support network for this addict and alcoholic that extends years. As long as they continue to go to meetings, a sponsorship could be a lifetime partnership. They can go to as many meetings they want for as long as they want. This support network will flex and is how the addict alcoholic needs. As their needs become more evident. If they're going through a hard time, maybe holiday season's coming up and a lot of people are relapsing and the addict feels additional pressures, they can up their meetings. They can go to more meetings per day if they need. They can call their sponsor more often. They can go to more social events to get themselves out there. They can reach out and read more literature. As maybe their life's going good, they're getting comfortable, it's been a couple years, and they don't need as much support, they can reduce their meeting count to once, twice a week. It's up to them. It's a flexible support group that will work around the current condition of the addict and alcoholic. So what I want to leave you with today is that 12-step recovery is more than just going to meetings. So often we've heard people say, I don't want to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, all they do is talk about drinking and it just makes me want to drink. Or when I go to NA meetings, it just makes me want to use drugs. Well, it's very true for someone in early recovery to not truly enjoy an AA or NA meeting. Completely normal. But we as practitioners, we as human services professionals need to acknowledge that this is an entire culture. This entire support group is set up to serve our clients as well. We need to be familiar with what they're going through as they work through the 12 steps. We need to be up to speed on how we can best help them, whether it be redirecting them back towards their sponsor, suggesting increasing their meetings, or suggesting them to what's the problem with being completely honest with what you're doing. So as human services professionals, 12-step recovery is a much richer experience than most realize. In fact, it is a culture, and as human service professionals, we must treat it as such. We are ethically bound to be aware of this transition period in an addict's and alcoholic's journey and to help and not harm. I hope I've gotten through to you today this sense of, by me not being aware of this, I'm neglecting addicts and alcoholics, the clients that are coming to us. It would be the same as me neglecting any other dimension of their personality or any other dimension of their what makes them up. You know, this is an entire culture that they've stepped into. Awareness of it's going to be beneficial to us as practitioners and to them because we can help them achieve what their goals. Thank you for spending this time with me right now. My references, the list of AA and NA and other 12-step recovery meetings, I can send out to you. This is my email address here. I can send you a copy of this presentation. I'm open to answer questions. Any of that, feel free to reach out, and hopefully I can help you help someone else. One more thing. I want to make a personal plea to you right now. I'm a member of the National Organization of Human Services. I attend conventions. I'm a very proud supporter of this organization. I joined when I was still in school, and someone came to my classroom and talked about the importance of having a national organization, and to me, it felt like it gave almost like a nobility or a authenticity to what I was sending forth into, what I was getting involved with. I didn't realize how big the National Organization of Human Services was until I attended a convention, and I got out there and I saw other people that were involved in the same craft I was. I saw authors of books that I was reading. To me, it really gave me a sense of being part of something much bigger, much more real, and really plugged me into a network of people that I felt akin to. I'm a member of this organization. Are you? I highly encourage you to check out the website, to sign up, and attend conventions. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. I'm going to try to present this next upcoming one. I think we're in Philadelphia this year. I'm looking forward to seeing you there as well. Thank you for joining me today, and take care.